Hi everybody, this is Jennifer at Nested Green, and I'm here today to talk to you about paint. So I'm occasionally going to look over because I've got my notes and such. So because we're in the new year, a lot of people are preparing for spring cleaning. I know it's not nice out, but my husband and I have been kind of going through our paint because over the years we've accumulated a lot of it and a lot of different types of paint, and I really felt inspired to say something about this. So we were painting or patching and painting some of our walls because we're actually selling our house. So today I've got 5 little fun facts about paint that you should keep in mind when you're looking to paint your space. So the first one is what kind of paint do you need and where is it going to go? So I am going to have more description about this in my blog post. The big thing though is that the higher the sheen, the higher the shine. So you may have the same color throughout your several different spaces, but if you go from a satin to a semi-gloss, then that is going to change the color. So you need to be aware of that and be okay with it. If you're in an apartment, often enough you'll find a semi-gloss finish in there because it's easier to clean. If you're looking to paint your wall in your apartment, consider your lifestyle, consider your space, like your surroundings. Are you in a higher end building? Are you in a low end building, which is fine, but what kind of living do you want to make for yourself? Because the quality finish in the paint will make a difference in how you feel about the space. So, this is a good segue into my next, number 2. Don't compromise price for quality. If it's one thing I've learned from buying paint, it's you get what you pay for, unfortunately. There's some people who can make an inexpensive paint work for them, and that's fine, that's great if you can. I can't anymore. Another good my husband. Because we've worked with more expensive paints, we're very grateful that we have been able to work with higher end paints, but it's also given us it's an eye-opener for sure, because we come back to use inexpensive paints and we're like, wow, this is horrible to work with. And it's not the paint itself, it's how it's the application, the thickness. Some inexpensive paints are really runny, so then it doesn't go on properly, or on the flip side, too thick, so then it's like brushing on glue, and your finished result is tacky, or it's kind of bubbly looking. It does not give a nice finish. And when you're dealing with paints that are too thin or too thick, or things like that, you're gonna have to end up doing several more coats than you would have expected. I only need 2 coats, but you get there and then you're like, oh, I have to do a 3rd or a 4th coat. Unfortunately, it happens, and especially more depending on the color you've picked and what you're painting over, because that's even more important. If you live in an apartment, consider your lifestyle. How long are you going to be there? If you're going to be there for 5 or more years, if this is going to be your home, great. Spring for the good stuff. Save your money. Get the good stuff. Feel better about it. This is your home after all. If you're only going to be there for like a year or 2, if you can try and live with the paint that's already there, you're going to probably just end up saving yourself a lot of money. If not, you can go with accent walls, pick a fun color. Of course, you always have to talk to your landlords first, because some of them are like, yeah, go do whatever you want, and then others are like, don't touch my walls. So number 3 is a big one, and it drives me nuts, is what's the deal with the paint and primer in one? So Catherine and I went to a Benjamin Moore presentation not too long ago, and we were actually discussing the paint and primer in one. I have personal experience with the paint and primer in one, and at the time it was kind of fairly new-ish, like at least in a big box store kind of way, and I was like, oh, this is amazing, this is super cool, but it was a pain in the butt to use. And so, like I mentioned earlier, the runny versus the thick. So this is the thick stuff. So here's the thing about the paint and primer one. When you're priming your walls, you can use pretty much any kind of primer. You can use a contractor base, which is exactly what we use at home, or you can use a half decent quality primer. Usually 1 or 2 coats is necessary, but again, it depends on what you're painting on top of. And hey, like usually if the wall's already been painted, you don't need to prime unless the color, like unless you're painting over a red or a blue or something like that. That's really the only time you have to prime over something. Now you're using your pigment in your paint as your primer as well, and it's almost unnecessary. If you didn't need to prime your walls to begin with, then you're just wasting money on something that doesn't need to be there and get you and not get you as far as you thought. Because when we did our apartment years ago, in all the paint and primer in one, and we had 6 or 7 different colors too, so whew, it gets expensive. We needed 2 or 3 extra more cans than we expected because it was too thick and it went on very thick. So primer is used to neutralize what's behind it, to keep the paint from soaking it in like a sponge. So if you've got new drywall, 2 coats of primer is usually the norm. If you've got a wall that's already been painted and the new paint could be painted right on top of it, you don't need to prime. It's not necessary. You're adding extra layers that don't need to happen. Primer is just to make sure that things don't seep through, that the drywall doesn't soak it up. So what we do at home, and even what we do on our job sites, is we buy a contractor grade primer, do our couple of coats if necessary, but usually it is, and then buy the good quality paint. It's not an extra step in labor, believe it or not, because we're putting on the same amount of coats of paint. So, and you end up saving money because primer can be used for any other thing. So you can, if you're going from an apartment to a house, then you can bring that primer with you and it can be used continually. Great. But once you're stuck with one paint color and you want, I want to go to a different color, well, okay, fine, but now you've got an entire can of paint that you can't really use again, or you may not use again. So point number 4, brush versus roll. So this is about technique. There's a lot of people who already own a lot of their own paint equipment. Great. I basically have Home Depot in our basement thanks to my husband. We've done a lot of side paint jobs, which is it's a lot of fun for us, but then there's a lot of people who don't and go with the basic stuff, or buy the questionable as seen on TV kind of products where you like dip these random brushes in paint and then for some reason it magically glides across the wall like it's no problem. And I don't understand how any of that works. The thing is that when people hire professional painters, they're getting the professional finish and time. It always bothers me so much when people are like, I'm gonna hire a professional painter, but then I'm gonna cheap out and get cheap paint. Well, that's not what's making a difference for you. That's not gonna change their quote. You're paying for a high quality finish, technique, and time. So what is your time worth? So another thing to consider is your tools. A huge, huge thing. So you see paintbrushes, you're walking through the store, and there's like some for like $2 and then some for $30. I'm gonna tell you right now, the $30 one is so worth it, you don't even realize. It sucks because it's so expensive, but there's actually paintbrushes I'm not allowed to use, and my husband's like, that's my cutting brush, because that is what we use for cutting in our ceilings, or cutting in our walls and such. So, because it leaves such a great finish, and it's so sharp, it's great. It works really, really well because of that. Whereas some other inexpensive brushes, that's fine. If you want to get something that's more budget oriented, I totally respect that. Just keep in mind not to compromise too much. Don't go too cheap, because then it's just going to create more work for you in the end, and you may be upset about that part. So what is your time worth, right? The reason why you cut in your door frames, your baseboards and such first is that when you roll your paint, you can get as close to those trim pieces as possible to kind of get rid of the brush strokes, but that way you don't have to get too close in risk of bumping up paint against another potentially already painted product and then having to retouch everything. If you want a clean finish, having the right tools to do the job are very key as well. So there's lots of tools that you can get. Some people might need something that somebody else doesn't. Using tape can be really handy for some people. My husband's apparently so good that he doesn't need tape anymore. I think I still need tape, but that's why I don't do too much painting anymore. Now, one thing I do have to note very quickly about taping your walls and such, no problem. If you're gonna do that, tape, paint, and then take the tape off for as soon as you can, kind of, because if you leave it on too long, then you're at risk when you pull the tape off that some of the paint will come with, especially that thick paint, because this has happened to me and it's not great. So take it off as soon as you can. It'll give a clean, sharper finish. And also be wary of bleeding, because even with the high quality tape, they have a tendency to bleed the paint through the tape and kind of not give a very clean finish. So just be careful with that. That's another reason why you kind of have to take it off as soon as you can. So that way nothing gets stuck to it more permanently. Lastly, where's the savings? Okay, so I have 5 points in my last point about where you could save money in your paint project. So a lot of these are kind of more recaps. So the first one is hiring a professional painter can definitely save you in some ways. So on a technical scale, they may actually end up being more expensive. So that is not necessarily what I mean by the savings, but what is your time worth? So I've already said this, but you know, they get the job done substantially faster with a professional finish. They have all the tools, so you don't have to go out and buy the tools. The second point is alternatively getting a friend to help you. And this is often what we have in the past have done personally is, you know, you order a pizza, you get some beers or whatever, and you know, you guys just have fun. Even better if they've got some technical skill and some tools. And so that can also be beneficial. And in a long way, probably, as long as they know what they're doing, probably a really great idea, because then you would get it done much faster. And maybe not to a quote-unquote professional finish, but to a finish that you're quite satisfied with. So another way to save money is limiting your colors. So when I lived in an apartment, when I bought that 2 paint primer and 1 sticky paint with 6 different colors, probably was not a great idea. Whatever you want to do is totally up to you. But if you want to save some money, the more paint colors you want, the more paint you have to buy. So you have to buy trim paint, you have to buy ceiling paint, new space. I mean, if you are in a pre-existing space, likely you don't have to buy ceiling paint. Potentially a primer if you need the primer. If you're doing bathrooms, that's a paint color on its own because of the semi-gloss finish. And then if you're doing a whole living spaces of bedrooms, you know, it all adds up. And like on my hand already, I'm already at like 6 different kinds of paints. So that's 6 different kinds of cans that you have to buy. And then you still have to, like, a bedroom is usually 2 cans, you know, so you have to kind of accommodate for that. But then if you start introducing more colors, then it's like, oh, you know, every bedroom's got 2 colors or something like that. Well, that's a lot of paint, and it adds up pretty quickly. Especially, and the worst is when you are so close to finishing, but then you finish your gallon, so you have to go out and buy like the quarts or the pint, yeah, I think it's the quarts of the paint, and it's like, oh, come on. It's kind of a slap to the face. So number 4, kind of like what I mentioned earlier, is buying a contractor grade primer and or paint if that's what you want to do. The contractor primers are actually really good. I've used them as ceiling paints too for new drywall, and it works so well. Like, people are surprised. And really inexpensive too, which is the bonus. And that's the reason why personally I use a contractor primer and then a high quality paint. It gives a really great finish at the end. But again, it's just a personal preference. If you are like, oh, contractor grade equals crap, you know, then that's zero. That's your thought. My last point, and this is fairly important, is that there are some economically priced paints that aren't bad. So I'm not saying go out and buy Benjamin Moore because it's expensive and it's a great paint. I like Benjamin Moore, I'm not gonna lie, but there are some inexpensive paints that are not bad. But again, it all comes down to a personal preference. What do you feel comfortable with? So doing your research can actually end up saving you some money in the long run by finding a paint that best suits your technique. I know that was a lot of information. I do encourage you to go check out the blog because I have all of this in text in case you find that listening to me was a little too overwhelming for you. With all that said and done, I hope you guys enjoy your paint project. We are, of course, always happy to answer any questions that you have regarding painting. We have lots of experience in it, including paint consultations and all that. We're certainly more than welcome to do that. The color behind me is Benjamin Moore Decorator White. It's like literally my favorite color to work with Benjamin Moore. And it's funny because it's such a basic color, but it's one of those colors that kind of adapts to what colors are around it, which is neat. So it's a very white gray kind of tone, but I'm gonna move here. So here I've got like a blue color with it. So because of that, it pulls out a bit of the blue in it. You can't see it in the camera very well, but it does have a bit of a blue tint. But I have seen this paint color, we've done this on a job site before, where there were more greens and more natural colors, and so it pulled out a bit of the green, so it was a bit of a lighter tone. Very interesting. Anyway, sorry, side fact, in case anybody was wondering. So anyway, everybody, enjoy your week and enjoy your painting. Thank you.